The ancient warnings echoed through every corner of the galaxy like whispered prayers against damnation. Water worlds brought death. This truth had been carved into the collective consciousness of every spacefaring species for thousands of years. The hegemony's vast databases contained nothing but horror stories about planets where liquid covered more than 30% of the surface. Commander Thane felt his secondary hearts skip as the scanner results appeared on his display. The third planet from the yellow star showed an impossible 71% water coverage. Massive storm systems swirled across its surface while deadly oceans crashed against fragile landmasses. Everything about this world screamed danger. Another graveyard system, muttered his navigator Rail from across the bridge. The young officer's pale blue skin had turned almost white at the sight of the readings. We should mark it as hazardous and move on. But something was wrong with this particular death world. Energy signatures pulsed from its surface in organized patterns. Electromagnetic radiation flowed in complex waves that could only mean one thing: life existed down there. Intelligent life. Thane's forearms trembled as he gripped the command console. In all his years of exploration, he had never encountered anything like this. The galactic records were clear about water worlds. The Vorthic Empire had sent 3 full fleets to investigate similar planets. None had returned. The crystalline Nexari had established a mining colony on a water-rich moon and lost every single inhabitant within a standard month. "Run the scans again," he ordered, his voice barely steady. "There must be an error in the equipment." The results came back identical. Cities sprawled across the landmasses in intricate patterns. Vehicles moved along predetermined routes. Most disturbing of all, artificial structures floated directly on the surface of the deadly oceans themselves. Rail's breathing apparatus clicked nervously as he processed the data. "Sir, how is this possible? Every species in the galaxy knows that water worlds are extinction zones." The historical records painted a clear picture of destruction. The mighty Corvin Empire had classified all ocean planets as exclusion zones after losing an entire research division to what their final transmission described as liquid chaos rising from the depths. The peaceful Alterian Federation had attempted to establish contact with a water-world civilization once. The rescue teams found only empty cities and oceans stained with unidentifiable organic matter, yet here was undeniable proof that someone had not only survived on a water world but was thriving. The energy output suggested a complex technological civilization. The electromagnetic patterns indicated sophisticated communication networks. Most impossible of all, the inhabitants seemed to be actively interacting with the deadly liquid that covered their world. "The beings down there," Thane whispered, staring at the impossible readings. "They're actually entering the water. The thermal scans show them diving beneath the surface." The bridge crew exchanged horrified glances. In their understanding of the universe, this was beyond comprehension. Water was a corrosive substance that could dissolve biological tissue. The pressure differentials in large bodies of liquid could crush any known material. The temperature fluctuations alone should have made the planet uninhabitable. Rail pulled up the historical databases and began reading the warnings aloud. The Zephyrian Collective. Water worlds consume all who approach them. The Stellar Confederation. Liquid death awaits those who dare to explore ocean planets. The Grand Alliance. No species has ever survived prolonged contact with water-dominated environments. The list went on for hours. Every major civilization in galactic history had encountered water worlds and learned to fear them. The pattern was always the same. Initial contact, followed by mysterious disappearances, then complete silence. The few survivors who escaped these encounters spoke of nightmarish visions of endless liquid horizons and crushing depths that drove explorers to madness. "Perhaps they're prisoners," suggested the communications officer. "Maybe the water world has trapped them somehow." Thane considered this possibility. It would explain how the inhabitants had survived so long in such a hostile environment. But the energy signatures suggested voluntary activity. The beings were not behaving like prisoners. They were building, creating, expanding their civilization across the deadly surface. "Sir," Rail's voice cracked with tension, "should we attempt communication? The Council protocols require us to report any new intelligence." The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Contact with a water-world civilization violated every safety protocol in the Hegemony Charter. But the scientific implications were staggering. If these beings had somehow mastered the liquid environments that had claimed so many others, they represented a fundamental shift in galactic understanding. Thane made his decision. Maintain maximum distance. Begin passive observation only. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we risk any direct contact. The ship's sensors focused on the impossible world below. The more they observed, the more disturbing the evidence became. The inhabitants were not just surviving contact with water. They were embracing it. Thermal imaging showed them immersing themselves in the liquid for extended periods. Spectral analysis revealed they were actually consuming the corrosive substance. "They're drinking it," Rail whispered in disbelief. "The beings are ingesting pure liquid water." The implications were terrifying. Either these creatures had evolved some impossible resistance to water's destructive properties, or they had developed technology that allowed them to exist in an environment that should have killed them instantly. Both possibilities challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about the fundamental nature of life itself. As the hours passed, the evidence mounted. The water-world inhabitants had not just survived their hostile environment, they had conquered it. Cities floated on the ocean surfaces. Massive structures extended deep beneath the waves. Most incredible of all, they seemed to find joy in their interaction with the deadly liquid. "Prepare a full report for the Council," Thane finally ordered. "Mark this system as a priority investigation zone, and send word to the research division. They're going to want to study this phenomenon." The bridge crew worked in stunned silence as they compiled their findings. Somewhere in the galaxy, a species had achieved the impossible. They had made water worlds their home. The question that haunted every member of the crew was simple but profound. How had they survived when every other species had failed? The answer to that question would change the galaxy forever. The morning shift at the Deep Space Communications Array had always been quiet, but Dr. Amy Foster sensed something different in the electromagnetic spectrum that day. 15 years of monitoring space for artificial signals had taught her to recognize the subtle patterns that separated intelligent communication from cosmic noise. The readings on her console showed something that made her pulse quicken. "Director Wilson, we have a situation here," she called across the facility's main floor. The signals were coming from the outer solar system beyond Neptune's orbit. They were clearly artificial. Too organized to be natural phenomena and too complex to be random electromagnetic interference. Wilson hurried over, his coffee mug forgotten on his desk. "What kind of situation?" "Multiple sources, maintaining fixed positions relative to each other. They're not moving with any known orbital mechanics, and look at this." Foster highlighted the signal patterns on her screen. Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, basic geometric relationships. Someone's trying to talk to us. Within hours, every major space agency on Earth was tracking the mysterious signals. The objects were clearly spacecraft, staying well beyond the orbit of Pluto but maintaining a perfect observation position relative to Earth. For 3 weeks, this cosmic standoff continued. The aliens watched, humans watched back. Neither side made any aggressive moves. The breakthrough came when the aliens transmitted their first deliberate message. It was crude but unmistakable, mathematical principles that any technological civilization would recognize, followed by what appeared to be star charts and basic pictographic symbols. "They're trying to establish common ground," Foster explained to the assembled team of linguists and scientists. "Basic math, physics, chemistry, universal constants that should be the same everywhere." But something in the aliens' messages seemed odd. The mathematical relationships were correct, but there was an underlying tone of urgency, almost panicked. It was as if the aliens were trying to warn Earth about something rather than simply establish communication. The mystery deepened when the aliens transmitted what appeared to be historical records, images of planets, star systems, and what looked like the ruins of civilizations. The pattern was disturbing. Every world shown had significant water coverage, and every civilization appeared to have met a catastrophic end. "They're showing us dead worlds," Wilson observed, studying the transmitted images. "All of them have oceans, lakes, major water features, and all of them are empty now." Dr. Foster spent sleepless nights analyzing the transmissions. The aliens were clearly advanced, possibly thousands of years ahead of human technology. But their messages carried a tone of genuine concern, as if they were trying to save humanity from some terrible fate. The first direct communication attempt almost ended in disaster. The alien vessel approached no closer than Jupiter's orbit, while broadcasting what could only be described as a desperate warning. The message was complex, but its meaning was clear. Water was dangerous. Liquid water was deadly. The aliens were trying to warn humanity about the oceans that covered most of Earth's surface. Captain Rebecca Torres, selected to lead Earth's first diplomatic response, found herself in the unique position of trying to calm down aliens who seemed terrified of her own planet. "They're telling us to evacuate," she reported to Mission Control. "They seem to think we're trapped on a death world." The cultural exchange that followed was unprecedented but also deeply unsettling. The aliens, who called themselves the hegemony, shared detailed warnings about the dangers of water. They provided scientific data about pressure differentials, chemical corrosion, and thermal shock. They seemed genuinely convinced that prolonged contact with liquid water would kill any biological organism. "They're asking if we need rescue," Torres reported after another communication session. "They want to know if we're being held prisoner by the water on our planet." The situation became even more surreal when humans began sharing routine footage of daily life on Earth. Images of people swimming, surfing, and playing in the ocean caused what could only be described as panic in the alien fleet. The hegemony's response was immediate and alarmed. Emergency protocols were activated, and their ships moved to what they considered a safer distance. "They think we're committing suicide," Torres explained to the growing crowd of diplomats and scientists gathered around the communication station. "Every time we show them humans interacting with water, they react like they're watching a horror movie." The aliens' fear was not just cultural, but seemed to be biologically hardwired. The hegemony transmitted detailed records of their own evolutionary history, showing how their species had evolved on desert worlds where water existed only in carefully controlled quantities. To them, Earth's vast oceans represented chaos incarnate. Dr. Foster began to understand the scope of the problem. "They're not just afraid of water," she explained to the assembled team. "They're afraid of us. They think we're either incredibly brave or completely insane for living on a planet that's mostly covered in the stuff." The aliens' concern was touching in its sincerity. They offered to share their technology to help humans evacuate Earth before the oceans could claim them. They provided detailed star charts, showing planets with minimal water coverage that could serve as refuges for humanity. But the more the aliens learned about human civilization, the more confused they became. Humans were not just surviving on their water world. They were thriving. Cities were built near coastlines. Agriculture depended on water systems. The human body itself was mostly water. "They're asking how we're still alive," Torres reported, after a particularly intense communication session. "They want to know what kind of protective technology we use to survive in such a hostile environment." The revelation that humans actually enjoyed contact with water sent shockwaves through the hegemony fleet. The concept of swimming for pleasure, of diving beneath the surface of the ocean for recreation, was so alien to their experience that they initially refused to believe it was possible. "They think our transmissions are fictional," Torres explained. "They believe we're showing them entertainment programs, not real events." The situation had reached a critical point. The aliens' genuine concern for humanity's welfare was matched only by their complete inability to understand how humans had survived so long on what they considered to be the most dangerous type of planet in the galaxy. The next phase of contact would require something more than words. It would require proof. The massive alien research vessel hung motionless in space, its hull gleaming with the reflected light of distant stars. Inside its heavily shielded laboratories, the greatest scientific minds of the hegemony struggled to comprehend the impossible. Data streaming from the third planet of the Sol system. Observer Prime, the expedition's lead researcher, had spent months analyzing the transmissions from the water world, and each new piece of evidence only deepened the mystery. "The biological readings are consistent," he reported to his team. "The creatures on that planet are indeed organic life forms, not mechanical constructs. Yet they continue to immerse themselves in liquid water without apparent harm." The observation deck buzzed with nervous energy as dozens of alien scientists reviewed the footage humans had transmitted. Videos of children playing in tide pools, surfers riding waves, and deep-sea researchers exploring ocean trenches played on screens throughout the ship. Each image challenged every fundamental principle of biology that the hegemony had ever discovered. Dr. Foster, now serving as Earth's chief liaison with the alien delegation, had spent weeks preparing for this moment. The aliens' fear of water was not just psychological but was rooted in their evolutionary history. Their species had developed on worlds where water was scarce and dangerous, where even small amounts of the liquid could cause severe biological damage. "We need to show them gradually," she explained to the assembled diplomatic team. "Their fear is so deep that sudden exposure to our relationship with water could cause them to flee entirely." The first demonstration took place in the relative safety of Earth's orbital research station. A simple glass of water became the center of the most important scientific observation in galactic history. The hegemony observers watched from behind. Multiple layers of protective barriers as Dr. Foster performed what they considered to be an act of supreme courage. She drank the water. The human subject has consumed approximately 200 milliliters of the corrosive substance, Observer Prime noted, his voice tight with scientific fascination and barely controlled horror. Thermal imaging shows no immediate tissue damage, though the long-term effects remain unknown. The demonstrations escalated slowly over the following days. Videos of humans washing their hands, taking showers, and swimming in pools were transmitted to the alien vessel. Each revelation sent ripples of shock through the hegemony's scientific community. These humans were not just surviving contact with water. They were seeking it out, surrounding themselves with it, even introducing it directly into their biological systems. They appear to be engaging in recreational activities involving the liquid, Observer Prime reported during one session. The subjects show no signs of distress. In fact, their biological indicators suggest they find the experience pleasurable. The breakthrough moment came when Captain Torres made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Against old diplomatic protocols and safety recommendations, she insisted on providing the aliens with a live demonstration of humanity's relationship with the ocean. "I'm going to take a swim," she announced during a video conference with the hegemony delegation. "Right here in the Pacific Ocean, in full view of your instruments." The alien response was immediate and panicked. Emergency protocols activated. Throughout their fleet, Observer Prime's usually calm demeanor cracked as he broadcast urgent warnings. "Negative. Abort the demonstration. The pressure differential will crush your biological structure. The salinity will cause immediate chemical burns. The temperature variations will induce fatal system shock." Torres stood on the deck of the research vessel, the vast blue expanse of the Pacific stretching to the horizon behind her. The ocean was calm that day, its surface reflecting the morning sun like a mirror. She wore only a simple swimsuit, carrying no protective equipment that the aliens could detect. "Watch and learn," she said, her voice carrying across the communication channel to the terrified alien observers. Then she dove into the water. The next 30 minutes shattered every assumption about biology and survival that the hegemony had held for thousands of years. Their instruments tracked Torres as she moved through the water with practiced ease, diving beneath the surface and swimming with fluid grace. The thermal readings showed her body temperature remaining stable. The chemical analysis detected no signs of tissue damage or biological distress. "She's moving through the liquid as if it were her natural environment," Observer Prime whispered, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. "The pressure readings indicate she's descended to depths that should have collapsed her internal organs, yet she continues to function normally." Torres demonstrated various swimming techniques, floated on her back while looking up at the sky, and even performed what appeared to be playful activities in the water. The alien scientists watched in stunned silence as she dove repeatedly beneath the surface, each time emerging unharmed and apparently refreshed. "The human is engaging in recreational behavior," Observer Prime reported, his scientific training struggling to process what he was witnessing. "She appears to be enjoying herself." When Torres finally climbed back aboard the research vessel, dripping wet and grinning with obvious satisfaction, the first transmission from the Hegemony delegation was a single incredulous question: "How are you not dead?" The explanation that followed challenged every fundamental principle of alien biology and physics. Torres described how humans had evolved in an aquatic environment, how water was essential to their survival, and how the ocean was not a hostile force but a life-giving presence that had shaped their entire species. "We're not fighting against the water," she explained to the assembled alien scientists. "We're part of it. It's not our enemy, it's our home." The cultural shock rippled through the Hegemony fleet as the implications became clear. For thousands of years, they had avoided entire star systems because of the presence of water. They had classified ocean worlds as exclusion zones, convinced that liquid water was incompatible with intelligent life. Now they were confronted with proof that not only could life exist in such conditions, but it could thrive and develop advanced technology. "Your species has mastered the most hostile environment in the known galaxy," Observer Prime finally transmitted. "You have achieved something that every other civilization has considered impossible." The demonstration had proven that humans were not victims of their water world, but its ultimate expression. The question that remained was what this revelation would mean for the rest of the galaxy. The Hegemony had spent millennia avoiding the very worlds that might hold the key to unprecedented biological and technological advancement. As the alien fleet prepared to depart, carrying news of this impossible discovery back to their homeworlds, Torres stood once again on the deck of the research vessel. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, the same ocean that had terrified an entire galactic civilization. To her, it was simply home. The Grand Council chamber of the Hegemony stretched across an area the size of a small city, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had gathered for an emergency session that would reshape their understanding of the universe itself. The evidence presented by Observer Prime and his research team had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. "The implications are staggering," declared High Counselor Vex, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "If the human species has indeed mastered water-world environments, then our entire galactic survey doctrine must be reconsidered." Dr. Foster stood at the center of the massive chamber, surrounded by alien delegates whose species had spent thousands of years fleeing from the very worlds she called home. The translation devices hummed softly as her words were converted into hundreds of different languages and communication methods. "The water worlds you've avoided aren't death traps," she explained to the assembled council. "They're evolutionary cradles. Every ocean planet in your databases could be teeming with life forms that developed in aquatic environments." The revelation struck the council like a physical blow. The Hegemony's star charts contained thousands of systems marked as exclusion zones solely because of their water content. Entire regions of space had been abandoned, their potential for exploration and colonization written off as impossible. Observer Prime activated the holographic display system, showing the council the footage of human interaction with water that had so profoundly disturbed his research team. The human subjects demonstrate complete comfort in aquatic environments. They do not merely survive contact with liquid water. They seek it out, they find it pleasurable. The images played across the chamber's walls, children splashing in tide. Pools, surfers riding massive waves, deep-sea researchers exploring underwater canyons. Each scene represented a fundamental challenge to everything the galactic community thought they knew about the nature of life itself. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Thex of the Vorthic Empire. "Our historical records show that 3 of our finest exploration fleets were lost to water worlds. How could these humans succeed where we failed?" The answer came from Dr. Foster, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "You failed because you approached water as an enemy to be conquered. Humans succeeded because we never saw it as an enemy at all. To us, the ocean isn't a barrier, it's home." The cultural shock rippled through the chamber as the implications became clear. The hegemony had developed their entire exploration strategy around avoiding water worlds. Their ships were designed for desert planets and low-humidity environments. Their protective suits were built to keep moisture out, not to function within it. "The economic implications alone are staggering," noted Counselor Rel of the Trading Federation. "If water worlds are habitable, then we've ignored some of the most resource-rich environments in the galaxy." Observer Prime continued his presentation, showing the Council the detailed scans of Earth's ocean systems. "The biodiversity readings are unlike anything we've encountered. The complexity of the ecosystem far exceeds our models for sustainable life support, and the humans have learned to harness this complexity for their own advancement." The evidence was overwhelming. Earth's oceans contained more genetic diversity than most entire star systems. The water cycle that the aliens found so terrifying was actually a sophisticated planetary climate control system. The tidal forces that seemed chaotic and destructive were, in fact, reliable energy sources that humans had learned to utilize. "We could have been exploring these worlds for millennia," admitted Counselor Nex of the Alterian Federation. "Instead, we fled from them like frightened children." The discussion that followed was unprecedented in galactic history. Species that had maintained their sovereignty through military might found themselves humbled by a single world's mastery of an environment they had never dared to explore. The humans had not achieved their success through superior technology or overwhelming force. They had succeeded through adaptation and understanding. "The question before us," announced High Counselor Vex, "is whether we can learn from the human example. Are we willing to reconsider our fundamental assumptions about habitability and survival?" The answer came in the form of a proposal that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. The hegemony formally requested human assistance in exploring the water worlds they had abandoned. Earth would provide the expertise and technology necessary to unlock the secrets of aquatic environments. Dr. Foster found herself at the center of the most important diplomatic negotiation in galactic history. "We're willing to share our knowledge," she told the assembled council. "But this partnership must be based on mutual respect and understanding. The water worlds aren't resources to be exploited. They're living systems that must be approached with care." The agreement that emerged from the negotiations established Earth as the galaxy's first center for aquatic research and exploration. Human specialists would work alongside alien researchers to develop new technologies and techniques for water world exploration. The species that had once fled from these environments would learn to work within them. "The humans offer us something we have never possessed," Observer Prime noted in his final report. "Not just the ability to survive in aquatic environments, but the wisdom to thrive within them." The transformation began immediately. The hegemony's research divisions redirected their efforts toward developing water-compatible technologies. Their exploration fleets began planning missions to systems they had ignored for centuries. The water worlds, once symbols of death and failure, became beacons of possibility. But perhaps the most profound change was in the galactic community's understanding of humanity itself. The species that had seemed so primitive and fragile had revealed themselves to be masters of the universe's most challenging environments. They had not conquered the water worlds through force or technology. They had succeeded through harmony and adaptation. As the Grand Council session concluded, the assembled delegates faced a new reality. The galaxy was larger than they had imagined, filled with worlds they had never dared to explore. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of space, countless aquatic civilizations might be waiting to be discovered by explorers. Brave enough to dive beneath the waves, the age of water-world exploration had begun, and humanity would lead the way. The bioluminescent creatures of Kepler 438 bepainted the ocean depths in colors that had no names in any earthly language. Director Torres pressed her face against the transparent aluminum viewing port of humanity's first permanent underwater colony on an alien world, watching as jellyfish-like organisms drifted past in formations that seemed almost choreographed. "The preliminary biological surveys are complete," reported Dr. Foster, her voice carrying the excitement of discovery that had driven humanity to explore the galaxy's most feared environments. "We've cataloged over 3,000 distinct species in just the first 100 meters of depth. The biodiversity here exceeds anything we found in Earth's oceans." 5 years had passed since the first tentative contact with the hegemony, and the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. The star charts that had once shown vast red zones of exclusion now glowed with blue beacons marking active research stations. Water worlds that had been avoided for millennia were now bustling centers of scientific discovery and interspecies cooperation. Aquatica Prime, the research colony that surrounded Torres, represented the pinnacle of human achievement in aquatic exploration. The facility extended deep into the alien ocean, its modular design allowing for expansion as new discoveries demanded more space. The transparent corridors offered stunning views of the underwater landscape while protecting the inhabitants from the crushing pressures of the deep. Colony Ship 7 reports successful establishment of the research station on Proxima Aquatica, announced the communication officer. The local ecosystem includes what appears to be a sentient cephalopod species. They're requesting immediate xenobiological support. The implications of that report would have staggered the galactic community just a few years earlier. Not only were the water worlds habitable, but they were populated by intelligent species that had never been contacted, because every other galactic civilization had been too afraid to approach them. Humanity had become the galaxy's aquatic ambassadors, facilitating first contact with civilizations that had existed in isolation for millennia. Observer Prime, now wearing a specially designed environmental suit that allowed him to work in the humid conditions of the underwater colony, marveled at the transformation. His people had spent 10,000 years convinced that water was the enemy of intelligence, only to discover that some of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had been thriving beneath the waves they were too frightened to explore. The energy readings from the Proxima system are remarkable, he noted, studying the latest reports from the exploration teams. The cephalopod civilization appears to have developed biotechnology that integrates directly with their ocean environment. They're not just living in the water, they're part of it. The discovery of aquatic intelligence had revolutionized galactic thinking about consciousness and civilization. The hegemony's traditional models assumed that advanced technology required land-based development, but the water worlds were proving that assumption wrong. Aquatic species had developed entirely different approaches to problem-solving, creating living technologies that grew and adapted rather than being manufactured. The architects of Titan Station have submitted their final designs, reported the engineering team. The new colony will be capable of supporting both human and hegemony researchers while maintaining perfect environmental integration with the local ecosystem. Torres smiled as she reviewed the plans. The colony would be humanity's most ambitious underwater project yet, a fully integrated research facility that could dive to depths that would crush conventional spacecraft. The design incorporated lessons learned from 5 years of waterworld exploration, creating a harmony between advanced technology and natural systems. The partnership between humanity and the hegemony had evolved far beyond the original research agreements. Alien scientists brought their advanced materials and energy systems while humans provided the intuitive understanding of aquatic environments that could only come from millions of years of evolution. Together they had achieved discoveries that neither species could have accomplished alone. The mineral extraction operations on Kepler 442b are exceeding all projections, announced the resource management team. The underwater volcanic systems contain rare elements that don't exist in conventional mining environments. The local ecosystem has actually incorporated these materials into its biological processes. The ocean worlds were revealing their secrets one by one. Advanced biotechnology developed by aquatic species offered solutions to problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries. Energy sources that could only exist in high-pressure environments provided power systems more efficient than anything previously discovered. Architectural techniques that worked with water rather than against it created structures that seemed to defy conventional physics. The translation protocols for the Proxima cephalopods are showing remarkable progress. Dr. Foster noted, their communication system incorporates color changes, electrical fields, and biochemical signals. It's like nothing we've encountered before. Each new discovery reinforced the same fundamental truth. The galaxy had been incomplete, limited, by fear of the very environments that held its greatest treasures. The water worlds weren't just habitable. They were essential to understanding the full scope of what life could achieve. Torres watched a school of alien fish navigate past the colony's viewing windows, their movements creating patterns that seemed almost like writing. The creatures were part of an ecosystem that had evolved in isolation for millions of years, developing solutions to survival that no land-based species had ever imagined. Final report to Earth Command, she dictated to the communication system. Waterworld exploration program has exceeded all expectations. We've established permanent research colonies on 17 different ocean worlds. Contact has been made with 8 distinct aquatic civilizations. The biological and technological discoveries are revolutionizing our understanding of life itself. The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had once fled from water worlds now looked to them for inspiration and advancement. Species that had considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution discovered that they had been exploring only half the universe. The ocean worlds, once feared as harbingers of death, had become the foundation of a new age of discovery. As Torres completed her report, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had not sought to conquer the galaxy's water worlds. They had simply offered to share them. In doing so, they had transformed from a single-world species into the galaxy's most essential guides to the infinite possibilities that lay beneath the waves. The ocean called to them from 1,000 different worlds, and humanity had answered. The deep was no longer a place of fear, but a realm of endless wonder, where civilizations as diverse as the stars themselves had found their home in the eternal embrace of the sea.